I've spoken several times now about the shock that I experienced when I got that call that said I was going to be the new bishop of St. Augustine. A shock that was never expected. I had to remind myself to breathe again. It has been an amazing honor since that moment to come here to learn about you and the people of our diocese, and I am grateful that the Lord has called me. People have been very welcoming. I have received many congratulations, and I am thrilled to be part of the excitement of having a new bishop. But this isn't the reason that God called me. The reason God called me is bigger than an honor that I was privileged to receive. Because God can always see what will come further down the road. And part of the reason that God called me to be bishop is for this today. Because confirmation is a sacrament that comes through the bishop that connects all who receive it to the church, to this church that we celebrate, not only around the diocese, but around the globe or through history and connected to heaven itself. Your confirmation. So God can always see past the people that are instruments in his hands to the ones who will benefit, who will receive the gifts that God has. So you can be sure in the mind of God that when I was the one tapped to be the bishop, God was already seeing you as someone who will be confirmed, who will receive this outpouring of the grace of the Spirit that God has entrusted to his church. But as powerful as it is for you to know that God saw you because he has this gift for you, today, as you come forward to be confirmed, God also sees past this moment. God also sees the people that will benefit because of what you receive today. God has many gifts to give. He gives those gifts because he loves us, but he also gives those gifts because he wants to love other people through us. So you should open your hearts fully to what God is giving to you. And you should know that this will take you in places you don't know yet, but places where God will respond to the needs of the world with your life, because you are present there. Now, it's amazing to realize that God has this call for us, because the God of all creation, the one who holds the universe in existence, somehow mysteriously still cares about each one of us specifically. So you are not here by accident. You are not just here because you're at that age when confirmation happens. You're here because God gave you life in the beginning, and God calls you to this moment because he knows how the grace of this moment will help your life in the future and will help the people that he will bring into your life. So I want to think about this great mystery of God's call and God sending us in light of what we heard in the beautiful story of today's gospel, the Samaritan woman at the well. There are some details in that story that we should learn from and connect to our own lives. First of all, you should know that encounter, a Samaritan woman at the well, and Jesus there because he was thirsty after a long journey, that was not random. It was not a coincidence. It was God's design. God intended, because Jesus was looking for that woman. He was there at that moment because he knew he would find her specifically in that moment. It tells us that she was there about noontime. It tells us that she was a Samaritan and a woman. All three of those things, the fact that she was there at noon and a Samaritan and a woman, meant that she was on the outside of her society, that Jesus should have avoided her altogether. Samaritans and Jews did not get along. Most other Jews would have labeled her and said, I don't want to be a part of your life. She was there at noon because all the other people that came for water came at the beginning of the day, and she was trying to avoid them because she was guilty of many sins. People knew who she was, and she was set apart from her community, and no one wanted to interact with her, and she wanted to avoid them all. So there she was at a time when she could avoid everybody because of all these things that marked her as somebody not to be around. And Jesus came looking for her specifically. He came because he knew all those things that caused everybody else to judge her. And he said, no, I want you specifically. She was shocked. She lists all these reasons why he shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be talking to me, a Samaritan. You shouldn't be talking to me, a woman. What are you doing here at this time? You don't really want to be here with me. And Jesus says, this is exactly where I want to be, here with you. So we should learn from that story because Jesus sees past all of the ways that other people judge to the heart of who each person is. And so each one of us is here, you who are being confirmed. You could probably list some things that would cause other people to judge you negatively. And you should know that Jesus looks at the very heart of who you are, despite the judgments of every other person. And he comes seeking you specifically in this moment, in this confirmation, just like he sought out that woman at the well. Jesus says to her, this is exactly where I want to be, because he saw all of the judgments that had been placed on her, and he knew how hard that was. And so he says to her, I know your burden, and I'm here to help you. He says, I have water to give you, living water. Now, she doesn't understand what he's talking about. She just thinks, if you could give me an endless source of water, I wouldn't have to keep coming back to this well. You could save me a lot of work if you would give me living water. But of course, Jesus is not talking about physical water. He is talking about something deeper. And when he begins to speak to her with love, her life changes. He even points out the very things that she has done wrong. You have all these husbands. You have been married and divorced and married and divorced, and you're not even married now. Here's all the things you've done. And instead of saying it to her as an accusation, she hears the voice of Jesus as someone there to lift her pain. Someone to says, I know who you really are, and I love you. When she hears those words, she says, you know everything I have done. I can see that you are a prophet. She doesn't get mad at him because he lists those things. Instead, she realizes this is the Messiah. This is the one who can free me from sin, the one who saves me from all the burdens of my life. And so it says that her burden was lifted. She could see that this Jesus was the one she had been looking for. In fact, so powerful was the reality of what she experienced that she forgot about her water and her bucket and she ran back into town. So think about what that means. All those people she had been trying to avoid, she now bursts into their town and into their homes and says, come and see. She no longer cares about what they think about her because she knows she has something to give them that can change their lives. And it works. Those people, they come to that well, they listen to what she says, and they find Jesus, and their life is changed. At the very end of that reading, it says, we no longer believe just because you say so. We believe because we have met Jesus in our own lives. And so we can connect this story to confirmation, because Jesus comes looking for you specifically. And he sees whatever burden that you might carry. And he says, what I have for you is living water. And in your case, what living water means are these gifts of the Spirit that come in confirmation. For you, right now, the living water of Jesus means that he pours into your life wisdom, knowledge, counsel, fear of the Lord, piety, fortitude, those gifts of God that you have learned about. Because God wants those gifts to free you from whatever worries you, to give you the strength that you need to recognize Jesus right in front of you. He does that because he loves you. But just like the woman at the well, he's going to send you to tell other people, to make sure that everyone knows the power of God's freedom. And so what happens for you today is that you receive a gift, but it is not meant just for you. It is meant to be used for the people that will come into your life, the people in your life today, people in the future. And so what you need is to receive fully the gift that God gives and to understand the giver of the gift is Jesus himself. So that when you find yourself burdened because of the judgments of other people, when you find yourself burdened because you know of sins that you have committed, remember that you are not lost. The same Jesus that came to you on the day of your confirmation stands ready to bring you back to him. And so my prayer for you is that your hearts will be fully open to the gift that you receive for your sake and for the sake of all of the rest of us. That like the woman at the well, you will begin to see Jesus for who he really is, the strength of God in your life, the one who calls you to himself, and the one who sends you to other people.